The sound of the pen scratching against the paper echoed like a gunshot in the silent boardroom. Adrian didn't just sign the divorce papers, he flourished his signature, grinning as he pushed the document across the mahogany table. "Finally free," he scoffed, checking his Rolex. "Take a good look, Ilara. This is what you're worth." Nothing. He thought he was discarding a burden. He thought he was trading a boring housewife for a younger, fiery model. But Adrian made one fatal mistake. He didn't know that the woman sitting opposite him, in her thrift store coat, wasn't just losing a husband. She was about to inherit an empire that could buy his entire existence 10 times over. And the ink on the divorce papers was the only key that unlocked it all. The conference room on the 42nd floor of the Vanguard Legal Group in downtown Manhattan was freezing. It was a sterile, glass-walled aquarium that smelled of lemon polish and aggressive capitalism. Ilara Vance sat with her hands folded in her lap, her knuckles white. She wore a grey wool coat that had seen better days, the fabric pilling at the cuffs. Opposite her sat Adrian Vance, the man she had loved for 5 years, the man she had supported while he climbed from a junior analyst to a regional director at Crowe and Finch. Adrian looked impeccable. His navy Italian suit was tailored to within an inch of its life. His hair was gelled back, not a strand out of place. He tapped his fingers impatiently on the glass table. "Come on, Ilara," Adrian sighed, his voice dripping with condescension. "Don't drag this out. You've read the terms. You get the Honda. The apartment lease is in your name. Good luck with rent, by the way. And I keep my investments. It's fair." It wasn't fair. The investments were built on the savings Ilara had brought into the marriage, money she had told him was an inheritance from a distant aunt. In reality, she had lived frugally, letting him spend it to maintain the image of a successful businessman. "I'm not dragging it out, Adrian," Ilara said softly. Her voice was steady, though her heart felt like it was being squeezed by a vice. "I just want to be sure you understand what you are signing. Clause 14b, the total severance agreement." Adrian laughed, a harsh, barking sound. He looked at his lawyer, a slimy man named Mr. Gorski, who smirked back. "Clause 14b, Adrian mocked, picking up the document and reading it aloud in a theatrical voice. "The parties agree to a complete and total financial severance. Neither party shall have any claim to the assets, inheritances, or future earnings of the other acquired after the moment of signature." "Yeah, I know what it says, Ilara. I had Gorski draft it." He leaned forward, his eyes cold and cruel. "I'm doing this to protect myself, Ilara. I'm on the verge of a promotion. I'm going to be making 7 figures soon. I can't have you coming back with your hand out, asking for alimony because you're too lazy to get a real job." Ilara's laziness had consisted of managing his home, cooking his meals, ironing his shirts, and emotionally supporting him through 3 nervous breakdowns when the market crashed. But she didn't argue. She simply nodded. "If you are sure, Adrian," she whispered. "I've never been more sure of anything," he sneered. "Jessica is waiting for me downstairs. We have a reservation at Le Bernardin. I'd invite you, but, well, it's out of your price range now." The mention of Jessica Thorne stung. Jessica was Adrian's assistant, 24 years old, ambitious, and lacking any moral compass. Ilara had known about the affair for 6 months. She had found the receipts for diamond earrings, the hotel bookings in the Hamptons, the texts that mocked Ilara's frumpy style. Adrian uncapped his Mont Blanc pen, a gift Ilara had bought him for their 3rd anniversary, and pressed the nib to the paper. He signed his name with a flourish, the scratch of the ink loud in the room. He didn't just sign it, he attacked the paper. "There," he said, sliding the papers across to the mediator, a stoic older woman named Mrs. Higgins. Done. I am officially a free man. Mrs. Higgins looked at the papers, checked the timestamp on the clock on the wall, and then looked at Elara. Mrs. Vance, or rather, Ms. Sterling, do you have the countersign? Elara took the pen. She didn't hesitate. She signed her name, Elara Sterling. Sterling? Adrian raised an eyebrow, standing up and buttoning his jacket. Going back to your maiden name already? Good. Vance never really suited you. Too powerful. He checked his reflection in the glass window. Well, I'm off. Don't call me. Don't text me. If you can't pay the rent next month, ask the homeless shelter for a bed. He turned to leave, his hand on the door handle. Wait, Mrs. Higgins said. Her voice was sharp, commanding, totally unlike the passive mediator she had been 10 minutes ago. Adrian paused, looking annoyed. What now? I have a dinner to get to. The divorce is finalized, Mrs. Higgins said, placing a stamp on the document. The time of dissolution is recorded at 4:15 p.m. You are legally strangers. Fantastic, Adrian said. Goodbye. Mr. Vance, a deep voice boomed from the back of the room. The heavy oak doors at the far end of the conference room, which had been closed the entire time, swung open. A man walked in. He was elderly but imposing, wearing a 3-piece charcoal suit that cost more than Adrian's car. He carried a leather briefcase and walked with the authority of a man who owned the building. Adrian frowned. Who the hell are you? The man ignored Adrian and walked straight to Elara. He bowed his head slightly. Ms. Sterling, my deepest condolences for your loss, and my congratulations on your freedom. Elara stood up, her demeanor shifting. The hunch in her shoulders vanished. She stood tall, her chin lifted. Thank you, Mr. Blackwood. Is everything in order? Who is this? Adrian demanded, stepping back into the room. Elara, who is this old man? I am Arthur Sterling's personal attorney, Mr. Blackwood said, his voice like gravel. And I am the executor of his estate. Adrian froze. He blinked, trying to process the name. Arthur. Sterling? As in, Sterling Industries, the shipping magnate? The guy who owns half the Seattle waterfront? The very same, Mr. Blackwood said, calmly. He placed his briefcase on the table, right over Adrian's copy of the divorce papers. What does that have to do with her? Adrian pointed a shaking finger at Elara. Elara turned to look at her ex-husband. Her eyes were dry, and for the first time in years, they were cold. Arthur Sterling was my father, Adrian. The silence that followed was deafening. It was as if all the oxygen had been sucked out of the room. Adrian's mouth opened, but no sound came out. He looked at Elara, really looked at her, searching for the lie. But he saw the resemblance, the same steel-grey eyes, the same sharp jawline he had seen on the cover of Forbes magazine. You're lying, Adrian stammered. Your father was... You said he was a mechanic in Ohio. He liked cars, Elara said simply, and he wanted me to find a man who loved me for me, not for my billions. So I lived simply. I found you, and I thought I had found love. Billions? Adrian's voice squeaked. Mr. Blackwood opened the briefcase. The late Mr. Sterling passed away 3 days ago. Per his last will and testament, the reading was to be delayed until one specific condition was met. Mr. Blackwood picked up the divorce decree Adrian had just signed. Condition 4A, Blackwood read, The inheritance shall only be transferred to my daughter, Elara Sterling, upon the legal dissolution of her marriage to Mr. Adrian Vance. My father did not trust you, Adrian. He investigated you. He knew about the affair before I did. But he couldn't force me to leave you. He had to wait until I was ready. Adrian's face went pale. He looked at the document he had just signed, the document where he waived all rights to her assets. Wait, Adrian said, panic rising in his chest. Wait a minute. We're still married, technically. The paperwork hasn't been filed with the state. It was filed electronically the moment you signed, Mrs. Higgins said, tapping her laptop. I am a deputized court clerk. You are divorced. And because of the waiver you insisted on, Clause 14B, you have no claim to the Sterling estate. How much? Adrian whispered, his greed overriding his shock. How much is it? Mr. Blackwood adjusted his glasses. After taxes, approximately $4.2 billion, plus the real estate portfolio in London, Tokyo, and New York, and of course, the controlling stake in Sterling Industries. Adrian felt his knees give way. He grabbed the back of a chair to steady himself. $4.2 billion, and he had just traded it for a used Honda and a dinner at Le Bernardin. Elara, Adrian choked out, a fake, desperate smile plastering itself onto his face. He took a step toward her. Baby, listen. This paper means nothing. We can fix this. I didn't mean what I said. I was stressed. The job, the pressure. Elara watched him approach, her expression unreadable. She picked up her cheap purse. You have a dinner reservation, Adrian, she said coolly. Don't keep Jessica waiting. I hear she hates it when people are late. Screw Jessica, Adrian yelled, reaching for Elara's arm. She means nothing to me. You're my wife. Before he could touch her, 2 large security guards materialized at the door. Mr. Blackwood stepped in between them. Mr. Vance, Blackwood said, you are trespassing on private property. This is a law firm, Adrian shouted. Yes, Blackwood smiled thinly. A law firm owned by a subsidiary of Sterling Industries. We own the building. Get out. The elevator ride down to the lobby was a blur for Adrian. He felt like he was falling, not just 42 floors, but out of reality itself. When the doors pinged open, the bustling noise of the lobby hit him. He stumbled out, his mind racing. This can't be real. This is a nightmare. He pulled out his phone. 3 missed calls from Jessica. He stared at her name on the screen. Jessica, the woman he had blown up his marriage for. A woman who liked expensive bags and bottle service. What was she compared to an empire? He dialed his own lawyer, Gorski. Gorski, you idiot! Adrian screamed into the phone, ignoring the stares of people in the lobby. You let me sign that. You let me sign away billions. Adrian, calm down. Gorski's voice came through, sounding confused. What are you talking about? You got the investments? You won. I got nothing. She's Arthur Sterling's daughter. She's worth $4 billion, you incompetent hack. There was a long silence on the other end. Sterling, are you sure? Of course I'm sure. I need to annul the divorce. Now, find a loophole. Claim I was under duress. Claim I was drunk. Anything. Adrian, you signed a waiver with a notary present. You drafted the terms yourself. If she really is a Sterling, she has the best lawyers on earth. You're cooked. Adrian smashed his phone against the marble wall. The screen shattered, much like his future. Meanwhile, 42 floors up, Elara walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. She looked out over the city of New York. It looked different now. It didn't look like a place she had to survive in. It looked like a chessboard she now owned. Are you okay, Ms. Sterling? Mr. Blackwood asked gently. I'm fine, Charles, she said, using the old family lawyer's first name. Actually, I feel light. Your father left a letter for you, Charles Blackwood said, pulling a cream-colored envelope from his jacket. He wrote it the day he went into the hospital. Elara took the envelope. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened it. The handwriting was shaky, but strong. My dearest Elara, if you are reading this, The leech is gone. I know you loved him, and I know it hurts. But a man who loves you doesn't make you feel small so he can feel big. You are a Sterling. You come from a line of builders and fighters. Take the world, Ilara. It's yours. But watch your back. The wolves will come when they smell the money. Be the lion. Love, Dad. A single tear rolled down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly. What is the next step, Charles? The board meeting is scheduled for Monday morning, Charles said. The shareholders are restless. Since your father's passing, the stock has dipped. They expect a leader, but they don't know about you. To the world, Arthur Sterling died childless. Then let's introduce them, Ilara said. But first, I need new clothes, and I need to go to the Hamptons. The Hamptons estate is being prepared. Charles nodded. May I ask why? Because, Ilara turned, her eyes flashing with a dangerous intelligence. Adrian and Jessica are going to the summer gala this weekend. Adrian spent $5,000 on a ticket just to network. I think it's time the hostess made an appearance. Saturday arrived with the humid heat of a New York summer. The Hamptons Charity Gala was the event of the season. It was held at the Sterling Manor, a sprawling oceanfront estate that had been closed for years. The invitees assumed the estate was just being rented out by the organizers. They didn't know the owner had returned. Adrian Vance parked his leased Porsche in the gravel driveway. He was sweating, and not just from the heat. For the last 3 days, he had tried to contact Ilara. He had gone to their apartment, but the locks were changed. He had gone to the motel she mentioned once, but she wasn't there. He was desperate. Adrian, stop fidgeting, Jessica snapped from the passenger seat. She was wearing a red dress that was cut too low and tight, screaming for attention. You've been acting weird all week. We're finally free. Let's celebrate. She didn't know yet. Adrian hadn't told her. He was terrified that if Jessica knew he had fumbled $4 billion, she would leave him faster than he had left Ilara. He needed to find Ilara, beg for forgiveness, and get back in before the news went public. Yeah, celebrate, Adrian muttered. Let's just find the VIP section. They walked toward the massive white tent set up on the lawn. The champagne was flowing, and the elite of New York were mingling. Adrian scanned the crowd, looking for potential investors for his startup, his backup plan if he couldn't get Ilara back. Suddenly, the music stopped. A hush fell over the crowd. A man on the stage tapped the microphone. It was Charles Blackwood. Ladies and gentlemen, Charles announced, thank you for joining us tonight. As you know, we are gathered here to honor the memory of Arthur Sterling. But tonight is also a celebration of the future. Please welcome the new chairwoman of Sterling Industries and the owner of this estate, Ms. Ilara Sterling. The spotlight swung to the top of the grand marble staircase of the manor. Adrian's jaw dropped. Jessica gasped. Ilara stood there. She was no longer the woman in the grey wool coat. She was wearing a custom emerald green gown that hugged her figure, adorned with diamonds that glittered under the lights. Her hair was swept up in an elegant chignon. She looked regal. She looked untouchable. She descended the stairs slowly, every eye on her. That's your wife, Jessica whispered, her eyes widening in horror. Adrian, that's Ilara. I know, Adrian croaked. Why did they call her Sterling? Jessica turned to him, her nails digging into his arm. Adrian, what is going on? Ilara reached the bottom of the stairs and took the microphone. She scanned the crowd, her gaze landing squarely on Adrian and Jessica. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Thank you all for coming, Ilara's voice rang out, clear and confident. My father built this company on integrity, on loyalty, values that are rare these days. She paused, letting the silence hang. I intend to run this company with the same values, which is why my first act as chairwoman will be to clean house. We are severing ties with partners who do not reflect our standards. She signaled to a waiter who walked over to Adrian. The waiter wasn't holding a tray of drinks. He was holding an envelope. "Mr. Vance?" the waiter asked, loudly enough for the surrounding circle to hear. "Yes?" Adrian said, his face burning. "Ms. Sterling asked me to give you this. It's a bill." "A bill?" "For the ticket to tonight's event," the waiter said. "Your credit card was declined, and since you are no longer a family member, the family discount has been revoked." Laughter rippled through the crowd. The humiliation was physical. Adrian felt like he had been slapped. "Declined!" Jessica shrieked. "You said you had money." "I do! I will!" Adrian stammered. Elara watched from the stage, sipping a glass of champagne. She wasn't done. This was just the appetizer. Monday morning in Manhattan broke with a grey, drizzling sky, matching the mood inside the conference room of Crowe and Finch. This wasn't just any meeting. This was the quarterly review with their biggest client, Sterling Industries. For years, Crowe and Finch had handled the logistics software for the Sterling shipping fleet. It was a contract worth $12 million a year. Usually, a senior partner handled this account, but today, the senior partner, Marcus Crowe, had made a specific request. "Adrian," Marcus had said earlier that morning, clapping a heavy hand on Adrian's shoulder. "I saw the news. I saw the gala. You were married to Elara Sterling, the heiress." "Ex-married, Marcus," Adrian muttered, nursing a hangover from a bottle of cheap scotch he'd consumed after the gala humiliation. "Whatever." Marcus waved his hand. "She's the new chairwoman. We need this contract renewed. You know her. You know how she thinks. I want you to lead the presentation today. Charm her. Remind her of the good times. Get us that signature." Adrian felt a cold sweat prickle his neck. "Marcus, I don't think that's a good idea. The divorce was contentious." "Fix it," Marcus snapped, his friendly demeanor vanishing. "You're a regional director. Act like one. If we lose Sterling, we lose 40% of our revenue. Don't make me regret promoting you." 2 hours later, Adrian sat at the head of the table, flanked by his team. The door opened. Elara walked in. She wasn't alone. Charles Blackwood was at her right, and 2 other severe-looking attorneys were at her left. She wore a sharp white suit that made her look like a blade in the dim room. She didn't look at Adrian. She took the seat at the opposite end of the long table. "Good morning," Elara said, opening a leather folder. "Let's proceed." Adrian stood up, smoothing his tie. He tried to summon the arrogance that had served him so well in the past, but his legs felt like jelly. "Elara, Ms. Sterling, it's good to see you. You look radiant." Elara finally looked at him. Her gaze was bored. "Mr. Vance, you have 10 minutes to explain why Sterling Industries should not terminate our contract for cause." "Terminate?" Adrian choked. "For cause? We've hit every metric. Our software efficiency is up 12%. "Your software is adequate," Elara said calmly. "Your ethics, however, are a liability." She slid a document down the table. Adrian picked it up. It was a printout of an email chain. His eyes widened. It was an email from his work account, sent to a competitor, offering to sell Sterling's shipping route data for a payout. "I didn't send this," Adrian gasped, looking at Marcus. "Marcus, I didn't send this." "The timestamp is from 2 months ago," Elara said. "Sent from your IP address. At the time, I was just your wife, cleaning your apartment. I saw you typing it. I saw you negotiating the price. You wanted extra cash to buy a diamond necklace for Miss Thorne, didn't you?" The room went silent. Marcus Crowe turned slowly to look at Adrian. His face was purple with rage. "Is this true?" Marcus whispered. "You tried to sell our client's data?" "She's lying," Adrian shouted, pointing at Alara. "She hacked me. She's trying to frame me because I left her." "We had a forensic audit done this morning," Charles Blackwood interjected smoothly. "The digital footprint is undeniable. Breach of confidentiality, corporate espionage, attempted fraud." Alara closed her folder. "Sterling Industries cannot do business with a firm that employs compromised agents. As of this moment, the contract is void." She stood up to leave. "Wait!" Marcus Crowe yelled, scrambling up. "Ms. Sterling, please! This is the action of a rogue employee. We didn't know. I will fire him. I'll fire him right now." Alara paused at the door. She turned back, a ghost of a smile playing on her lips. "You'll fire him. Immediately," Marcus barked. He turned to Adrian. "Pack your things. You're done. And expect a lawsuit from us for breach of contract." Adrian sat slumped in his chair, the breath knocked out of him. He looked at Alara, pleading with his eyes. "Please don't do this." Alara looked at Marcus. "If he is removed from the premises within the hour, and if Crowe and Finch agrees to a 20% reduction in fees for the next 5 years, we might reconsider renewing the contract." Marcus didn't hesitate. "Security!" he roared. 2 guards entered. The same guards, Adrian realized with horror, who had thrown him out of the law firm on Friday. "Get him out of here," Marcus ordered. As Adrian was dragged past Alara, she leaned in close, so only he could hear. "You wanted to keep your investments, Adrian? I hope you saved them. You're going to need a good defense attorney." Adrian was thrown out onto the sidewalk of Fifth Avenue with a cardboard box containing a stapler, a stress ball, and a picture frame of him and Jessica. It began to rain. He took a cab back to the apartment, the expensive penthouse he had leased 2 weeks ago, to impress Jessica. The rent was $8,000 a month. He had no job, no severance, and a lawsuit coming from his former employer. He burst through the door, soaking wet. "Jessica, we need to pack. We need to leave the city." The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. "Jessica." He walked into the bedroom. The closets were open. Empty. The jewelry box on the vanity. Empty. Even the expensive silk sheets he had bought were gone. On the bed lay a single piece of paper. It was a printout of a bank balance. Joint account, 450 overdrawn, and a note scrawled in red lipstick on the mirror. "You said you were rich. You're a loser. Don't find me." Adrian stared at the mirror. He started to laugh. It was a manic, broken sound. She had left him. Of course she had. She was a parasite, and the host was dying. He fell onto the bare mattress, staring at the ceiling. He had nothing. No wife, no job, no mistress, no money. But then a dark thought crept into his mind, a thought fueled by desperation and rage. Clause 14b. He sat up. He scrambled for his phone. The screen cracked, but still working. He dialed a number he had saved years ago, a college buddy who had barely passed the bar exam and now ran a shady practice in Queens. "Saul, it's Adrian. I need to sue someone." "Who?" Saul asked, sounding bored. "Alara Sterling." Saul whistled. "The billionaire? You want to sue God, Adrian? Good luck." "I have leverage," Adrian lied, his voice trembling. "I have proof. She defrauded me. She hid her identity to get me to sign a disadvantageous divorce settlement. That's fraud, Saul. It voids the agreement. If I win, I get half. Half of $4 billion. If you can prove she intentionally deceived you to cause financial harm—" "Maybe," Saul said, his interest piqued by the potential contingency fee. "But we need evidence, and we need to go nuclear. We need to destroy her reputation before we even step into court." "I can do that," Adrian said, his eyes narrowing. "I know things about her. Personal things. Secrets she doesn't want the board of Sterling Industries to know." "Like what?" "Like the fact that her father didn't die of natural causes," Adrian improvised. "It was a lie, a total fabrication, but he didn't care. And that Ilara hastened his exit to get the chair." "Whoa," Saul said. "That's murder accusations, Adrian. You better be sure." "I'm sure," Adrian hissed. "Start the paperwork. I'm going to the press." The headline on the New York Chronicle the next morning was screaming in bold black letters. "Heiress or murderess. Ex-husband claims Sterling CEO hastened father's death for billions." Ilara stared at the tablet in her hands. Her coffee had gone cold. They were in the library of the Sterling estate. Charles Blackwood was pacing the room, his face pale. "This is slander, Ilara," Charles said tightly. "We can sue him for defamation. We can bury him." "It's already out, Charles," Ilara said softly. "Look at the stock price." She swiped the screen. Sterling Industries stock was down 8% in pre-market trading. The board was calling every 5 minutes. The shareholders were panicking. Adrian knew exactly where to hit. He didn't need to win in court. He just needed to make her look unstable enough to be removed as CEO. If she settled with him to make him go away, he would win. "He wants a payout," Ilara realized. "He's blackmailing me." "We should pay him," one of the junior lawyers suggested nervously. "Give him 10 million. Make him sign an NDA. It stops the bleeding." "No," Ilara slammed her hand on the table. The china rattled. "That's what he wants. He thinks I'm the same woman who cooked his dinner and apologized when he had a bad day. He thinks I'm weak." She stood up and walked to the window. Outside, paparazzi were already swarming the gates of the estate. "He accused me of killing my father." Ilara's voice shook, not with fear, but with fury. "My father, who was the only person in the world who loved me unconditionally. Adrian has crossed a line he can't come back from." "What do you want to do?" Charles asked. "He wants a media war." Ilara turned, her eyes hard as diamonds. "Let's give him one. But we aren't going to talk about my father. We're going to talk about him." "We have the forensic report from Crow and Finch," Charles noted. "The attempted sale of data." "That's business," Ilara waved it off. "People find corporate espionage boring. We need something visceral, something that shows the world exactly who Adrian Vance is." She looked at Charles. "Get me the security footage from the apartment building, the old one, specifically the night of December 14th last year." Charles frowned. "December 14th? What happened then?" "That was the night I confronted him about his gambling debts," Ilara said quietly. "He didn't take it well. He lost his temper." Charles's face darkened. "He hit you?" "He threw a vase. It missed me, but it shattered against the wall next to my head. Then he grabbed me by the throat and told me I was worthless without him. The hallway camera. The door was open. It might have caught the audio, maybe even the visual. If we release that," Charles warned, "it will be humiliating for you. The world will see you as a victim." "No," Ilara corrected him. "They will see a survivor, and they will see a monster. And there's one more thing," Ilara added. "Find Jessica Thorne." "The mistress? She left him, didn't she? I bet she's angry. I bet she feels used. Find her. Offer her a job. Not a high-paying one, just a job, and an exclusive interview with Vanity Fair. 2 days later, Adrian sat in a booth at a dive bar in Queens, waiting for Saul. He felt good. The news cycle was dominated by his allegations. He had given 3 interviews, crying crocodile tears about how Ilara changed and how he feared for Arthur Sterling's safety. People were believing him. Or at least, they loved the drama enough to click. The TV above the bar was playing the news. "Turn that up," Adrian told the bartender. The anchor was looking serious. "Breaking news in the Sterling saga. Ilara Sterling has released a statement and a video." Adrian smiled. Here comes the settlement offer. But the screen didn't show a press release. It showed grainy black and white footage. It was a hallway. His hallway. Adrian's blood ran cold. On the screen, a younger Adrian was screaming, his face twisted in rage. The audio was clear. "You are nothing. You are a parasite. I spend the money because I earn the money. You just sit there and rot." Then, the sound of shattering glass. The video showed Adrian lunging at Ilara, pinning her against the doorframe, his hand around her neck. The bar went silent. The patrons turned to look at Adrian. Then, the scene cut to an interview. It was Jessica Thorne. She looked tired, wearing simple clothes, no makeup. "He told me she was crazy," Jessica said to the camera, wiping a tear. "He told me she was abusive. But it was him. He used her money to buy me things. He stole from her savings. And when he found out he couldn't get her inheritance, he tried to sell his company's secrets. He's a con artist, a dangerous one." Adrian stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. That's taken out of context. That's fake." The bartender, a burly man with tattoos on his neck, reached over the counter and grabbed the remote. He turned the TV off, then looked at Adrian. "Get out," the bartender growled. "I haven't finished my drink." "Get out." Adrian stumbled onto the street. His phone started buzzing. It was Saul. "It's over, Adrian," Saul said. "I'm dropping you. You didn't tell me there was video of domestic assault. I can't touch this. You're radioactive." "Saul, wait. We can spin this." "Spin it? You're on video choking a billionaire heiress. The DA just called me. They're opening a criminal investigation for assault and battery, and Crow and Finch just filed their lawsuit. You're going to prison, kid." Adrian dropped the phone. He stood in the middle of the sidewalk, the city bustling around him. He looked up at the giant digital billboard in Times Square. It was a live stream of the Sterling Industries stock ticker. It was climbing, green arrows pointing up, and next to it, a picture of Ilara Sterling, looking fierce and composed. The headline read, "Sterling Strong. Chairwoman exposes abuser. Stock surges." She hadn't just defeated him. She had monetized his destruction. 6 months later, the Manhattan Criminal Courthouse felt less like a hall of justice and more like a Roman Colosseum. The air inside courtroom 3B was thick with the smell of damp wool, stale coffee, and the electrifying buzz of anticipation. Ilara sat in the front row of the gallery, flanked by Charles Blackwood and a private security detail. She wore a navy suit, armored in tailoring. She wasn't there to gloat. She was there to bear witness. She needed to see the final door close on the darkest chapter of her life. At the defense table sat Adrian Vance. The transformation was startling. The Italian suits were gone, replaced by an ill-fitting county-issued orange jumpsuit that washed out his already pale complexion. His perfectly gelled hair was limp and greasy. He had lost weight. His cheekbones protruded sharply, giving him a skeletal, desperate look. He kept glancing back at the gallery, his eyes darting wildly until they found Ilara. When he saw her, he offered a weak, trembling smile. It was a reflex, a muscle memory from a time when a smile could get him out of trouble. Ilara didn't blink. She looked through him, as if he were a smudge on a window pane. The trial had been a spectacle. The prosecution, led by a carnivorous district attorney named Patricia Kim, had dismantled Adrian's life, brick by brick. They started with the financial fraud. The forensic accountants from Crowe and Finch took the stand, walking the jury through the complex web of Adrian's attempts to sell sterling data. They showed the emails, the burner phone records, the desperate late-night searches for non-extradition countries. It painted a picture not of a savvy businessman making a mistake, but of a drowning rat clawing at anything to stay afloat. Then came Jessica Thorne. Jessica took the stand, looking nothing like the bottle service girl in the red dress. She wore a modest grey cardigan and spoke in a hushed voice. She refused to look at Adrian. "He told me he loved me," Jessica told the jury, tearing up. But it was never about love. It was about what I represented. I was the shiny new toy he thought he deserved. And when the money didn't come through, when he realized Ilara was the one with the power, I became garbage to him. He left me in that apartment with nothing but debt. She looked at Ilara, then back to the jury. He used everyone. He's empty inside. Adrian's public defender, an overworked man named Mr. Henderson, tried to paint Jessica as a bitter ex-mistress looking for 15 minutes of fame. But the damage was done. But the cornerstone of the prosecution's case was the video. When DA Kim announced she was playing Exhibit C, the hallway security footage, a hush fell over the courtroom, so profound you could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights. The large screens mounted on the walls flickered to life. The grainy black and white footage played. There was Adrian, his face contorted into a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. The audio echoed through the high-ceilinged room, his cruel words, the sickening crash of the vase, and then the physical assault. The sight of him pinning Ilara against the wall, his hand at her throat, was visceral. In the gallery, Ilara forced herself to watch. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a phantom echo of the fear she had felt that night. Beside her, Charles Blackwood gently placed a hand on her arm. Adrian, however, couldn't watch. He stared down at the laminate table, his hands shaking uncontrollably. The jury watched, their faces hardening into stone. There was no spinning this. There was no context. It was raw violence born of entitlement. The prosecution rested. It should have been over. But Adrian, driven by a narcissist's belief that he could charm his way out of anything, insisted on taking the stand against his lawyer's frantic advice. It was a disaster of epic proportions. Under direct examination, Adrian tried to cry. It was a performance. "I was under immense pressure," he sobbed, dabbing at dry eyes. "The market was crashing. I was working 80-hour weeks to provide for Ilara. I just snapped. It was one time. I'm not a monster. I still love my wife." Kim stood up for cross-examination. She didn't pace. She didn't shout. She just leaned against the podium and looked at Adrian like he was a particularly interesting bacteria under a microscope. "Mr. Vance," she began, "you say you love your wife. Yet 3 hours before you assaulted her in that hallway, credit card records show you purchased a $1,200 bracelet from Tiffany's. Was that for Ilara?" Adrian froze. I don't recall. Let me refresh your memory. The receipt was emailed to Jessica Thorne. Did you love Jessica too?" "It's complicated," Adrian stammered. "It seems quite simple, Mr. Vance. You love money, and you hate anyone who gets in the way of you having it." She grilled him for 2 hours. She caught him in lie after lie. By the end, his fake tears had dried up, replaced by the same spitting anger the jury had seen in the video. "You're twisting everything," Adrian shouted at the DA, slamming his fist on the witness stand. "None of you understand. I deserve that money. I put up with her for 5 years. I earned it." The silence that followed his outburst sealed his fate. He had just admitted, in open court, that he viewed his marriage as a transaction and his abuse as justified frustration over payment. The jury deliberated for less than an hour. When the foreman read the verdict, Ilara felt a strange sense of anticlimax. Guilty on count 1, aggravated assault. Guilty on count 2, wire fraud. Guilty on count 3, corporate espionage. The judge, a no-nonsense woman named Judge Albright, looked over her spectacles at Adrian. "Mr. Vance, your behavior has been reprehensible. You defrauded your employer, you terrorized your wife, and you attempted to manipulate this court with perjury. You are a danger to those around you." She sentenced him to 12 years in a federal penitentiary, with no possibility of parole for the first 10. As the bailiffs moved in to cuff Adrian, he lunged toward the gallery. He didn't get far, but his eyes locked onto Ilara's. "Ilara! Ilara, please!" he screamed, his voice cracking with genuine terror as the reality of prison crashed down on him. "Don't let them take me. I can fix this. Baby, I love you. Tell them we can work it out." He was still screaming her name as they dragged him through the side door. The heavy oak door slammed shut, cutting off his cries. Ilara let out a breath she felt like she had been holding for 5 years. The cage was finally closed, but she wasn't the one inside it anymore. "It's done," Charles whispered. "No, Charles," Ilara said, standing up and smoothing her suit jacket. The tremolo in her voice was gone, replaced by steel. "It's just beginning." A year later, the Seattle waterfront was shrouded in a thick morning mist. The cries of seagulls mingled with the distant foghorns of container ships navigating the Puget Sound. Ilara stood on the metal grating of a catwalk high above the Sterling shipyard. Below her, sparks flew as welders worked on the hull of a massive new freighter, the Arthur S. It was the flagship of the renewed fleet, the physical manifestation of the company's turnaround. Under Ilara's leadership, Sterling Industries had not only stabilized, it had evolved. She had sold off the bloated real estate divisions Adrian had coveted and reinvested everything into sustainable shipping technology. The stock price was triple what it had been the day she took over. She was featured on the cover of Forbes, the headline reading, "The Sterling Standard, How Ilara Sterling Raised an Empire from Ashes." She was successful, she was respected, but she was also profoundly tired. The fight had taken everything out of her. She lived in the sprawling Sterling manor, alone. The silence there was different now. It wasn't lonely, but it was heavy. She heard footsteps on the metal stairs behind her. It was Charles Blackwood. He was moving slower these days, the cane in his hand more of a necessity than an accessory. "I thought I'd find you here," Charles said, his breath clouding in the cold air. "It's 5 a.m., Ilara. The board meeting isn't until 9. "I like watching the work," Ilara said, keeping her eyes on the welders below. "It feels real, unlike boardrooms." Charles moved beside her. "The quarterly numbers are in. We exceeded projections again. You've done it, Ilara. You saved his legacy." "Did I?" Ilara asked quietly. She turned to look at the old lawyer. "Sometimes I feel like I just became what Adrian wanted me to be. Cold, ruthless. I fired 3,000 people in the restructuring, Charles. My father never fired anyone if he could help it." "Your father lived in a different time," Charles said gently, "and he didn't have to fight the battles you did." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, tarnished brass key. He held it out to her. "What is this?" Ilara asked, taking the cold metal. "Your father's safety deposit box at the old bank downtown. the one that closed 10 years ago. I had the contents moved to my office safe, per his instructions. He told me to give this to you only after the dust had truly settled, after Adrian was gone and the company was safe. What's in it? I don't know. I never looked. Arthur was very private about certain things. An hour later, Elara sat alone in Charles's office, a heavy, velvet-lined box on her lap. The brass key fit the lock perfectly. She opened it. Inside, there were no stock certificates, no deeds to hidden properties. There was only a stack of old photographs and a microcassette recorder. She picked up the photos. They were Polaroids. Her and her father on a fishing boat when she was 10, both covered in grease, laughing. Her father sitting on the floor of their modest Ohio living room, helping her build a science fair volcano. The last one was of her on her wedding day. Arthur was smiling, but his eyes in the photo were sad. With trembling hands, she picked up the recorder and pressed the play. The tape hissed for a moment, and then Arthur Sterling's voice filled the room. It sounded weak, breathless, recorded near the end. Ely, my little star. Elara choked back a sob. No one had called her that since she was a child. If you're listening to this, then the hard part is over. Charles told me about the clause in the will. He thinks it's cruel. He thinks I'm forcing you to suffer with that man longer than you have to. A coughing fit interrupted the recording. Elara gripped the device tighter. I know about the bruises, Ely. I saw the makeup you used to cover them last Thanksgiving. I hired an investigator. I know everything he did to you. Elara's tears fell freely now. He had known, and he hadn't stopped it. A wave of betrayal washed over her. I wanted to kill him, Arthur's voice growled, suddenly strong again. I wanted to hire men to break his legs and throw him in the Hudson. But Charles stopped me. He said if I interfered, you would never truly be free. You would just be trading one controlling man for another. Even if I was doing it out of love, I would still be taking away your agency. The voice softened. You spent your whole life trying to please me, Ailey. Then you spent 5 years trying to please him. You forgot who you were. The will, the condition that you had to divorce him to get the money. It wasn't to punish you. It was to force you to choose yourself. For once in your life, I needed you to value your own freedom more than anyone else's comfort. There was a long pause on the tape. I didn't build this company for the money, Elara. I built it so my daughter wouldn't have to depend on anyone. I built you a lighthouse, but you have to be the one to climb the stairs and turn on the light. I love you, more than all the ships in the sea. Be brave, my star. The tape clicked off. Elara sat in the silence for a long time. The morning sun crested the horizon, flooding the office with golden light. She finally understood. Her father hadn't abandoned her to Adrian's cruelty. He had trusted her strength enough to know she would eventually break her own chains. The inheritance wasn't the gift. The divorce wasn't the gift. The gift was the necessity of action. He had forced her into a corner where her only option was to fight back, and in doing so, she had found the iron core of herself that Adrian had tried so hard to crush. She wasn't cold. She wasn't ruthless. She was just awake. Elara wiped her face, stood up, and walked to the window looking out over the city. She wasn't just Arthur Sterling's daughter, the heiress. And she certainly wasn't Mrs. Adrian Vance, the victim. She took a deep breath of the cool morning air. She was Elara Sterling, and for the first time in her entire life, she was free. Elara's journey from the discarded wife in the thrift store coat to the titan of industry was brutal, but necessary. Adrian Vance signed those divorce papers, thinking he was throwing away trash, never realizing he was lighting the fuse of his own destruction. He rots in a cell, a testament to greed and arrogance, while Ilara stands atop an empire built on the very strength he tried to beat out of her. It's a stark reminder that the most dangerous person in the room isn't the one shouting. It's the one who has quietly endured, waiting for the moment to strike back. If Ilara's story of resilience and perfectly executed revenge fired you up, hit that like button and share this video with anyone who needs a reminder to know their own worth. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a story about justice being served cold. Thanks for watching.